Hey everyone, and welcome back to We're Talking About with Kaley Gray. If you're new here, I'm Kaley. So, have you ever felt like you're maybe a glass half empty or a glass full kind of person? Well, today we're going to dive in today's episode. But first, I would love it if you would subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening or watching. This helps me with just getting my content out to other listeners. And so I just want to say thank you. Whether you have maybe been here from the beginning or you're new, I just appreciate you for taking time out of your day to listen. So, a question that I have for you, and it's a question that I've been asked, maybe countless times, is why are you so positive? You must be fake because no one is that nice. And I'm not saying I'm a positive person 24/7, but I want to share the importance of having a positive mindset. So, have you ever noticed how just even a simple smile from a stranger can brighten your entire day? Or how accomplishing something so basic as making your bed can give you just that small sense of victory? Just me? Okay. Well, I am that person that makes their bed every day. Unless it's laundry day, then I don't make my bed and, I'm stripping the sheets. But there's wisdom in learning to celebrate life's small moments. So when we train our minds to notice and we appreciate these everyday victories, we're actually rewiring our brains to see that the good that surrounds us constantly has always been there. And it's easy to want to wait for those big moments, the promotion at work, the vacation, maybe a major milestone to feel joy. But what if the joy was available to us right now, in this moment, through a simple act of recognizing it? So when we celebrate small things, we're not being naive to life's challenges. Instead, we're choosing to acknowledge that good, it exists alongside those difficult times. So this practice, it builds our capacity of gratitude and it helps us maintain hope during the tougher seasons. So let's think about yesterday. Did you complete a task? Maybe did you have a meaningful conversation with someone, or did you simply just, show up for someone that needed it? These moments deserve recognition. As we begin this journey to having a more positive mindset, we have to start with the foundation of learning to see and celebrating the small gifts that each day brings. This isn't like forced optimism. It's about training our hearts to notice that the light, it's already there. So having a positive outlook on life, it's not always easy, but it can be a choice that we make daily. Many people wonder how, certain people seem to radiate more positivity naturally, while others struggle with negativity. The truth is that maintaining a positive mindset, it is a skill that can be developed through intentional practices and habits. So, having a positive mindset, it doesn't mean we are ignoring life's challenges or we are pretending that everything is perfect. Instead, it's about choosing to focus on hope, growth, and gratitude, even in difficult circumstances. So, having this approach, it not only benefits your mental health, but it also impacts how you interact with others and you navigate life's ups and downs. So, celebrate the small things in life and see what kind of changes in your perspective of how your thinking start to change. Because I know it's going to bring you a more positive mindset. And because, what it does for you, that it's already doing it for me. So what are some small wins that, the everyday accomplishments that maybe go unnoticed? Making your bed, putting on your seatbelt, not choosing to text and drive. Maybe you complete a simple task. To work through these victories, just start acknowledging them. So start acknowledging these moments throughout your day. When you complete a small task, take a moment to mentally acknowledge and celebrate it. I know it sounds silly, but this practice, it will train your brain to notice positive moments rather than focusing on what went wrong, what still needs to be done. So the key is to shifting from like this culture that only celebrates like the major milestones to one that you find joy in like the daily progress. This mindset, it can change significantly and impact your overall outlook on how you see life. So, do you also know that your words have incredible power? And think of a recent conversation where maybe you reacted quickly and how pausing and choosing your words more carefully could have changed the outcome for both you and the other person. Our words, they can either build bridges or they can create walls. They can heal wounds or they can inflict pain. And so, in this fast paced world that we live in, we often react quickly, especially when we're frustrated or hurt. But there is tremendous wisdom in learning to pause before we speak. So, when someone says something that triggers us, our natural instinct might be to fire back immediately. However, that pause, even if it's just for a few seconds, it can be the difference between the words that we regret saying and the words that bring life. So during that pause, we can ask ourselves, would these words help or hurt? Do they reflect who I want to be? And this isn't about being fake or, suppressing your feelings. It's about choosing to respond from our best self rather than a wounded self. And so the practice of pausing, it allows us to move from reaction to response. So from like the emotional driven words to having intentional communication. So when we speak life-giving words, we're not just blessing others, but we're also shaping our own hearts. So the words that we speak have a way of coming back to us. So they're either creating cycles of negativity or they're creating cycles of encouragement. So as we build on each day's foundation of celebrating the things, so today, maybe we're practicing mindful communication. So with that, these habits begin to transform not just how we see the world, but how we interact with it. So there is so much power in pause. So maybe before responding to emails or texts or conversations when you're upset, take time to pause. Write your initial response if needed, then delete it. I have done this so many times. And it allows you to think rationally of how to communicate effectively and kindly. When you are speaking life over yourself, you might not realize it, but others are also paying attention to the negative things that you say about yourself or even about others. So like I said, like our words carry such power. So speaking negatively, it doesn't benefit anyone in the long run. And I can tell when I have been hanging around negative people and people that complain all of the time. And sooner or later, you're going to either join them in what they're saying, or you're going to be mentally exhausted from being around them. So instead of having our words tear someone down, let's choose words that build each other up and encourage one another. Because another thing that is really important in having a positive mindset is what you listen to matters. The content that you consume, it affects what's coming out of your mouth. So if you're going through a difficult season, be intentional about what music, podcasts, movies that you're consuming. Because sometimes this means choosing worship music over songs that maybe might reinforce negative or sad feelings. Even if you normally enjoy that type of music, you might just have to pause on it. I used to listen to country music a lot, and I still do every once in a blue moon, but I'm not saying like it's horrible music to listen to, but it's just not always feeding my soul. So be sensitive to your heart and your soul and what grieves it, because there's been times where, maybe I didn't finish a Netflix series because after watching it, I just realized like it wasn't good for my heart. And it wasn't like it was a terrible show, but there was just something inside of me that I felt like, I don't think I should keep watching this. So be sensitive to that feeling and remember the season of life where you need to be and reminded that your joy is there. I remember a time I had to only listen to joy songs because I was sad. And it wasn't that I had to do it all the time, but there was just a time that it was helping shift my mindset for the day of having those joy songs in the morning. So, have you also heard of like who you spend time with is who you become? I mean, you can't always control the environment you're in, like work, school, family situations, but you can be intentional about seeking positive influences in your life. And so, if you're constantly surrounded by negativity, it's going to affect your mindset. I remember that when I had changed jobs, I had loved this team that I was working with, but I just didn't realize how much it had messed with my mental capacity because it was just more of a negative environment. And now, not everyone can change jobs, but when I didn't realize how much being in that new job had helped my mental space every day. And I was in this different mindset at work, and my new position, it wasn't perfect or drama free, but I wasn't being around that negativity every day. And it helped me so much. And so I know we are called to be the light in certain areas. And I had prayed about making this shift and finally had the green light to be able to change. But that's just something that when it might not be going your way, it doesn't mean you can just jump ship. But for me, a life change is, maybe not being around certain people or certain friendships. And you can sometimes control that. Now, people are going to leave and you either feeling energized or hopeful. And so spending time with certain people can drain your spirit. And it's not a coincidence. The natural result of someone's mood being transferred to you, it's a real thing. So we usually tend to absorb the attitudes and energies of those around us. And so this is why choosing who you have in your inner circle is so crucial for maintaining a positive outlook on life. So surround yourself with positive, life-speaking people. It's not, again, about avoiding the challenges and difficult conversations, but it's about making sure that the voices closest to you are the ones that encourage you to grow. They're going to speak truth to you in love, and they help you become the person that God created you to be. These relationships, they are going to provide strength during tough times, and they're going to celebrate you during the good times. So if you find yourself lacking these kinds of relationships, don't worry. They can be cultivated. So look for people around you who already have these qualities that you admire, the kindness, the wisdom, the faith, encouragement, just to name a few. And so often these people, where are you going to find them? They're going to be found in places where community is intentionally built. So churches, volunteer organizations, connect groups. Remember, this works both ways. As you seek out positive influences, you also have the opportunity to be that encouraging voice for someone else. So, who we surround ourselves with, it has impact on the influence for our future. So, having someone to look up to who can speak wisdom into your life, it's so important in life. And these relationships, they provide guidance, encouragement, and accountability in your own journey. So, I highly, highly recommend finding somebody that gives you that positive outlook and can encourage you and be that. Because it's such a joy when somebody is intentionally looking to brighten someone's day. And that's something I try to be, is I try to be that person. And, it could be a genuine compliment. It could be a small act of kindness, or really just taking time to listen, because it not only blesses the person who you're speaking joy into, but it blesses you. And when we encourage others, something inside us begins to shift and we begin to notice the good in people more often than not. And so our hearts get bigger, and surprisingly, we find ourselves more positive and hopeful. And so this isn't about like grand gestures or like having expensive gifts, but sometimes the most meaningful encouragement comes through the simplest acts. So it could be remembering somebody's name or asking about how something went when they maybe had briefly mentioned it to you. Or if God puts them on your heart and you are just thinking about them or you're praying for them, send them that text saying that, because that can mean the world to that person because you don't know what they're going through. So these little small investments in others' lives, they create ripples of positivity that extend far beyond what we can see. And as you know, we've seen just like how to build a positive mindset. We're celebrating small things. We're choosing our words carefully. We're surrounding ourselves with encouraging people. And now we also need to add the act of like speaking life into others, because there's so much truth in the statement that when we bless others, we find ourselves also blessed. And something that I have to be mindful of, and something that I want you to also start recognizing, is when you're running low, when you're constantly on the go without taking time to rest, you become more likely to react negatively to situations. So even the most positive person needs to recharge. And just like our phones need to be charged regularly, our souls need intentional times of rest. And when we are constantly on the go, running from one thing to the other, we can find ourselves becoming a little bit more reactive to situations when they could turn out to be a little bit more negative in those reactions, and even being more or less patient with others. And it's usually the people closest to us. And so that's why it's important to take time for prayer, reading your Bible, listen to worship music, getting a good night's sleep, exercising, having a rest day. These are all ways that we can refill ourselves spiritually, emotionally, and physically. And when we're rested and spiritually fed, we have more capacity for patience and kindness and joy. We're better equipped to celebrate those small things. We start choosing our words more wisely. We're able to encourage others, and we can like maintain those positive relationships. So even if you're out there chasing your dreams and burning the midnight oil, it is so important to have evenings where you simply rest without working on anything. This allows the mental break for you to recharge and return to your responsibilities as a more healthier and positive version of yourself. So, I want to end today with challenging you to become more aware of your reactions and attitudes. I want you to ask yourself, are there certain situations that tend to trigger more negative responses in me? Or what small wins can I celebrate today that I might normally overlook? Or how do my words affect others throughout the day? Are they positive and life-giving, or are they negative? Who in my life speaks positively to me, and how can I spend more time with them? And when was the last time I genuinely showed appreciation to someone else? Maybe what does my soul need to feel recharged and refreshed? And you may not be able to answer all of these questions at one time, but just remember, developing a positive mindset, it's a journey. It's not a destination. So even naturally positive people can continue to grow in this area because our goal isn't perfection, but it's progress. So keep choosing hope, gratitude, and kindness. It's one decision at a time. So keep staying positive because our world needs more positive people in it. I hope this episode encouraged you, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye.